Imagine this. You're rushing through an airport, you realize your phone is completely dead, and you desperately need to check your flight status.
Oh, that's a familiar feeling of panic.
Right. Or maybe you need a colleague to cover just an hour of your shift so you can make a really critical appointment. You have a real need, but the second you open your mouth to ask for help, you just feel that
Uh,
awkward stumble.
it's the sound of social friction, really. We all have this sort of, social currency, and asking for a favor, even a tiny one, means you have to make a withdrawal.
You're creating an obligation.
Exactly. And the biggest challenge is finding the words that ask for help without, demanding it. Or worse, making the other person feel pressured or even guilty for saying no.
It's why the specific language we use is, it's often so much more important than the actual thing we're asking for. So today we're diving into some fantastic material that basically gives us the full social script for asking, accepting, declining, and even negotiating favors. We're looking for those specific phrases that just strip away the awkwardness and make these interactions feel smooth and natural.
Yeah, and our mission here is to move beyond just simple vocabulary and really understand the strategy underneath it all. We're going to analyze the politeness mechanisms that are at play.
Okay, so before we jump in, let's define the scope. We're talking about favors.
Right, asking someone to do something nice for you, an act of service. You're not giving an order.
And there's a really crucial ceiling on what even counts as a favor, which we need to remember.
Mm.
You can't just ask someone to buy you a new house. That's not a favor. That's just, as the source says, too much.
Yeah, absolutely. We're focused on reasonable requests for help or borrowing something, things that don't place this huge burden on the other person. They have to be able to say yes or no comfortably.
Because if the request is too big, the whole politeness thing just fails instantly.
It does.
Yeah.
You basically violated the unspoken social contract that a favor has to be something within easy reach for that person. The whole structure of the request depends on the request itself being appropriate.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with what the material calls the soft ask.
Mm.
We have this classic scenario with Sarah. Her phone battery died, and she urgently needed to make a call. So necessity was on her side, but she kept her composure perfectly. She didn't just march up to Tom and bark.
Give you your phone.
Exactly.
Her need was real, it was urgent, but her language was still very mitigated. She used what, linguists would call hedging. She introduced a bit of uncertainty, not to confuse him, but to soften the whole request.
And the specific words she chose are just gold. She said, Tom, would it be possible for me to use your phone for a quick call?
And what's so fascinating there is that would it be possible completely shifts the focus. You're not asking Tom to do something for you.
Now that's interesting.
You're asking if the surrounding circumstances allow for the action. It's a really powerful rhetorical tool. It functions as an indirect request, so it removes the pressure because you're signaling right up front, hey, I get that the answer might be no, and that's okay.
You're protecting his face, his social standing, by giving him an easy way out. It's a genius piece of social engineering.
It is.
It makes the no feel impersonal, like it's not a personal rejection of you.
Absolutely. And that phrasing is so versatile. We see it for lower stakes things too. Would it be possible to meet tomorrow instead of today? Or would it be possible to grab a coffee while we talk? It's gentle, it's respectful, and it always lowers the tension.
But okay, we can level that politeness up even more. The material gave us 2 ways to layer on even more of that softening. The first one involves adding just one tiny, humble word. Possibly.
Right. So if you say, could you possibly lend me a pen for a minute? You're really pushing the politeness to the max. You're asking if there's even a small possibility that this favor can be done. It's almost like you're apologizing for even asking.
But doesn't hedging that much with possibly sometimes sound a little too tentative? Or maybe even a bit subservient, especially at work? Where's the line?
That's a really important question. The general rule is sort of the lower your status is compared to the person you're asking, or the bigger the favor, the more you should hedge.
Got it.
If you're asking your boss for a major concession, possibly, might be exactly right. If you're asking a close friend for a tiny favor, you might sound like you're teasing them. You really have to match the language to the relationship.
Okay. And the second favorite of mine for softening the ask is the phrase that just sounds so friendly and relaxed. I was wondering if...
A classic. It's a pre-framing device. You're basically saying that this is a thought you've been considering internally, like, I have this question in my mind, before you even present it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I could borrow your book for the weekend. It feels less like a sudden demand and more like an ongoing collaborative thought.
And for those super simple, low-stakes requests, like asking someone who's already standing right by the door, the material recommends just being efficient with, do you mind?
Right.
As in, do you mind holding the door for me? It's quick, it's efficient, and it gets the job done.
It covers those basic social maintenance tasks perfectly.
Now, a quick bonus phrase that shows up later on. When Sarah needed help moving a really heavy bookcase, she didn't use any of these elaborate soft ask structures. She used a simple, natural appeal. I could really use an extra hand.
That is such a natural, common idiom. It instantly communicates the need without you having to detail the task or create a formal request.
Right.
If you're carrying groceries that are about to spill or moving a big table, just saying, I could really use an extra hand, is immediately understood as a call for help. It's informal, but it's perfectly clear.
So we've mastered the soft ask by putting the other person's comfort first. Now let's flip to the response. When you get a soft ask, your acceptance has to be just as gracious to close that loop without making the asker feel, indebted.
Absolutely. So when Sarah asked Tom to use his phone, his response, yeah, sure, no problem, was perfect. That no problem part is crucial
Why?
because it specifically counteracts the politeness structure of Sarah's original question.
Because she framed it as a potential burden with, would it be possible? So Tom has to confirm that it's not a burden.
Exactly. No problem signals to her, you worried for nothing. This is genuinely easy for me.
Yeah.
It just erases that feeling of guilt or social obligation that was just created.
It makes the favor feel cheap in the best possible way.
Yeah.
We also have a toolkit of other great ways to say yes happily, of course. It is common and friendly for small stuff.
And if you want to show actual enthusiasm, that's where you elevate your response a bit. That's where phrases like, glad to help, or I'd be happy to come in. They're warm responses that show you're actually happy to help, not just agreeing because you have to.
And for the ultimate friendly sign-off, the source gave us the classic, anytime.
Right. That's a signal that you're, open for business, so to speak. It means not only did I help you now, but feel free to ask me again in the future. It really solidifies a friendship by inviting it to happen again.
Okay, so once the favor is done, the gratitude needs to match the depth of the help. Sarah, after using Tom's phone, didn't just give a quick thanks. She pulled out the power expression. You're a lifesaver.
The term lifesaver uses hyperbole so brilliantly. It conveys this extreme gratitude, meaning the person helped you in a really difficult or important situation. Her life wasn't literally saved, but Tom solved a major problem for her in that moment.
It communicates emotional relief.
It does. You strategically use lifesaver when the immediate need is high, even if the action itself was simple, like grabbing you a coffee when you were just swamped with work.
So if the situation is less urgent, but still important, and you need a phrase that communicates the value of the help the material points to, I really appreciate it.
That's a superb middle ground. When you use appreciate, you're communicating that you understand and value the person's time or effort. It's a little more formal than thanks a lot, and it conveys a deeper, more considered sincerity.
And for those moments when you just want a bigger thank you, we learn to add scale. Saying thank you so much or thanks a lot makes the gratitude feel bigger. Or you can focus on the person's character by saying, that's so kind of you.
And that acknowledges their helpfulness is a reflection of their good nature, which is a really powerful way to thank someone.
Okay, we've covered asking and accepting. Now we get to the highest stakes part of this whole interaction.
Now,
How to say no politely without damaging the relationship.
this is the tricky part.
It is, and that's where the structure becomes absolutely critical.
The goal when you're saying no is relational preservation.
Right.
You have to decline the favor, but you cannot decline the relationship.
Right.
And the material gave us a perfect three-part structure. Tom used it when Sarah asked him to help move that incredibly heavy bookcase, which he just couldn't do.
Let's call this the graceful decline template. What's step one?
Step one is the apology. Tom started with, I'm so sorry, but I can't. This shows immediate regret that he can't fulfill the request.
And step two, and this is where I think most people fail when they say no, the good intention. He used the key phrase, I'd love to help you out, but...
That phrase is a masterpiece of mitigation. It confirms to the asker, my desire is to help you. I have positive feelings for you, and I wish I could. It proves the refusal is because of outside circumstances, not a lack of willingness to help her.
It protects her face completely. And step three, the reason. He kept it brief, he kept it honest. I have a dentist appointment at that exact time. No big story, just a genuine short reason.
And that three-part template, apology, good intention, reason.
Yep.
It prevents the asker from taking the refusal personally. If you connect this back to hedging, that "I'd love to, but" is like the strongest form of mitigation you can use when saying no.
And we have some alternatives if you want to vary the language. For a more formal situation, you could say, unfortunately, I'm not able to.
Yes. That's good for professional context or if you're talking to someone you don't know well, especially if the reason is something definite, like a work thing.
And then there's the empathetic option, which is great for friends. I wish I could, but it implies you genuinely feel for their situation, even if you can't help.
Finally, the phrase, "I'm afraid I can't." You don't literally mean you're scared. You're using "I'm afraid" as this fixed phrase of courtesy, a signal of polite regret to soften the rejection. It's concise, but still very polite.
Fantastic. Now for a completely different social script negotiation. What if you can do the favor, but it's a really big lift and you feel justified in asking for something back?
Okay, this is where the social rules shift completely from favor to transaction. And the material was really clear on this. Negotiating a favor is typically reserved only for people you are very close to.
Right. Friends, family.
Friends, family, maybe colleagues you have a long history with. You just don't negotiate a trade with a stranger. It would immediately come across as rude because they haven't earned the right to have that kind of transactional talk with you.
It kind of violates the purity of the favor.
It does.
The source gave us a perfect high-stakes example. Tom needed Sarah to cover his shift for a wedding, which is a major inconvenience. Sarah agreed, but she negotiated.
She used the key conditional structure. Sarah's response was, "I'll cover your shift if you cover my shift on Friday."
That is just clear, transparent deal-making. There's no soft language there. The help is conditional. The expectation is spelled out. It's a really effective way to turn a huge imposition into a fair exchange.
And this is the structure you use with trusted friends when the favor is big enough to need a formal trade-off. "I'll lend you my car for the weekend if you pay for the gas and wash it."
And we have a few other ways to open that negotiation. You can propose it directly. How about we trade?
Or you can use the willingness structure, which is a little more courteous but still conditional. "Would you be willing to help me clean the kitchen if I cook dinner for you?"
And if you're already halfway to saying yes, but you need one small condition, the "but could you" phrase is perfect. I can do that, but could you help me move my table later? It ties your yes directly to their action.
What's so fascinating here is that we've really looked at two distinct social contracts. The first, the whole lifesaver interaction, relies on high politeness, on hedging, and on minimizing any sense of burden.
Right.
And the second, the shift switch, relies on direct conditional language and a really clear trade-off.
And the key, as you pointed out, is that the relationship determines which script you pull out. So we've equipped you with precise language for navigating all of these critical social moments. The main takeaway is that the architecture of the conversation, that politeness structure, is the most important part.
Yeah, whether you're asking, accepting, declining, or making a deal.
So since context and that specific language are so critical to avoiding offense and getting what you need, think about this. When is the structure of gracefully declining a favor, that three-part template, "I'd love to," but more important than the structure of negotiating a trade, like, "I'll do this if you do that"?
Does the relationship itself determine whether a clear, explicit transaction is seen as rude, or is it just seen as helpful? Something for you to mull over as you deploy your new language toolkit in your next social interaction.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Take care.